let's take a look at the books on my radar for the Spfbo 9 season. Hello everyone, welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris, and today's video is an Spfbo 9 TBR of sorts. I've picked out 20 books from the list of 300 to actively try and prioritize over the next 12 months to really make sure I'm getting in that self-pub goodness. Now, each of these books have caught my attention for different reasons, and rather than go through and read all of the blurbs, which I have done to get these 20 books, I will be sort of giving you an insight into what drew me in, and some of them are for purely vain reasons, and the cover was really good, and then the blurb was really good, but the cover is what drew me in. So I'll be giving you a bit of insight into my process of picking these books, but I have read all the blurbs and picked out the ones that do seem the most interesting to me. Now, these 20 books, I will say 8 of them were already on my radar prior to the competition starting, and they've either been gifted to me as review copies, or I've already picked them up and really want to read them based on the premise, and I will go through those, as well as the ones that I've gone through and picked. So 8 of those already on my radar are on this list, and then I've gone ahead and picked another 12, which seem super interesting to me personally, and I definitely want to get read within the next 12 months. I've been lucky enough already to have read about 13 to 14 books from the competition, so very quickly I'll run through the books that I have already read. But before I do that, make sure you're checking out the description box down below for links to my social media and Discord should you want to come along for the ride. Okay, the books I've already read: The Price of Power by Michael Michel, The Last Ranger by J.D.L. Rosell, Dream of Death City by P.J. Nwasu, No Heart for a Thief by James Lloyd Doolan, Seas of War by Joao F. Silva, Vevensong by Jonathan Neves Mayers, The Way of Unity by Sarah K. Bolstrop, Heliotrope by Palmer Pickering, The Briar Crown by Helen Reig Peterson, Shadow of the Winter Moon by Cam Sinclair, I've stopped counting because I ran out of fingers, The Awakening Fire by Cassidy Faylene, The Ruptured Sky by Jessica A. McMinn, and Curse of the Fallen by H.C. Newell. So I think that's 13 or 14, I wasn't counting as I ran through them in my head, but those are the ones that I have been lucky enough to already have read in the competition this year. So what have I picked up? What are my 20 that I have got on my radar from Spfbo 9? Let's take a look at the 8 already on my list, which have been either given to me as review copies or I've already had on my radar prior to the list of the competition coming out. First one is Rada by Tracy M. Joyce. The author for this one reached out to me about this one and said it included a 6-year-old protagonist. The premise of the story also sounds super dark, so I was quite intrigued to see what those two things would look like when they were meshed together. In a world of intricate politics, rivalries, dissent, and revolt, where old gods lay in wait, the fate of 2 little girls will change the course of an empire. Everything depends on a 6-year-old with a slingshot. I'm very intrigued with how this story is going to unfold. The cover is beautiful, and I'm looking forward to getting to this one sometime this year. The next one I have on the list, and the winner of my note, that video hasn't come out yet, so I can't say that, but there's a spoiler alert for you for a future video. I've also put Gallery of the Barbarian by Taylor Hartley on this list. This was an absolute cover buy. This is probably one of my favorite covers that I've ever seen. I went ahead and I bought the paperback, even though I may have to ship it to Perth and pay more money rather than have it fit in the car when we go. These are queer stories from a queer author, and I'm all about it. I believe these are almost episodic like tales, which is wrapped in a larger novel. I could be wrong, but the blurb, the picture, it's everything that I want right now. So I put this one on my list. Changing course a little bit, I've got the Doctrines of Fire by C.L. Jarvis. This is the Edinburgh Doctrines book number 1. This book has been on my radar since before release. I love the idea of a thrilling historical fantasy novel with some dark academia vibes. I am all about it. I really enjoyed the blurb, which I have read here on the channel before. Every single part of that description has me wanting to know what is happening inside of this book, and it might just be a nice change of pace to a lot of the epic fantasy that I have on this list. Moving on from there, already on my radar is Phased by Victoria Tekken. Now, admittedly, I have sort of been enjoying some more YA novels, and I know this one is targeted to a younger audience, and I also don't mind the odd paranormal tale. I don't read a whole hell of a lot of them, but I don't mind them whenever I do pick them up. I respect the hell out of Tori here on BookTube, so it was quite exciting to see this one in the competition, and I'm looking forward to picking this one up. Next one I have that's already on my radar and locked in for some point in 2023 is The Bleeding Stone by Joseph John Lee. The series name is what drew me to this series. How can you go past a series called The Spellbinders and the Gunslingers with a Western-like cover like this? I'm very intrigued with what's going on behind the pages, and I can't wait to jump into this one. Next up is another review copy that I was gifted. This is The First Rule by Stephen William Hanna. This is the Blind Age Book 1. Now, this book has the words dark fantasy horror involved, which are my favorite 3 words to be put together in the bookish world ever. So those words are definitely going to automatically draw me in. But something else that has me intrigued is the author is quite picky with the books he picks up over on Twitter. So I'm very interested to see what's happening in their book. So I don't know what to make of this one yet. I love the cover. I think the artwork is stunning. And yeah, I'm looking forward to finding out whatever the heck is happening inside this one. Then we have the book I'm currently reading right now. This is Carved Amidst the Shadows by M.T. Fontaine, a Brands of Telgear novel. Now, this was also very kindly gifted to me. A physical copy was gifted to me by the author. I'll have to put the picture up there because the physical copy is all the way over there, and I don't want to undo the setup. So thank you so much again for MT Fontaine for sending me a physical copy of this one. The prose is great, it's accessible, it's a highly political dark fantasy, and I'm having such a good time with it. This one follows 3 people. We've got the carved, the marked, and the flawed. So it's been very interesting so far, and if you like political fantasy, I already recommend this one. And the last one that was already on my radar was A Low Country by Morgan Shank. This is a Low Country book number 1. Now, this one's interesting because have you ever felt like you could just be good buds with an author but have no actual rhyme or reason to base that on? I feel that way about Morgan Shank, and I don't know why. Plus, the details in the cover are so intricate for this Western style book. So Western fantasy is a genre that I've also wanted to try out, and I haven't really delved into that yet. There are a couple on this list here, so we're looking at an Old West adventuring vibe, and I'm looking forward to jumping into this one. So those were the 8 that I already had on my radar, so let's dive into the 12 books that I've picked out from the competition that look like they're going to work for me in every way possible. The first one of these is The Cataclysm by Aaron Jackson. Now, I've been intrigued by this author for a little while now, and the cover sold me. There are a couple on this list that you'll see on the cover competition later on in the week, but of course I did read these blurbs to make the ultimate decision to put these up on the TBR. A little snippet from the blurb says, "The world has never recovered from the cataclysm a century ago. Though the fires have died and the famines ran their course, the scars left behind blur the lines between right and wrong." I love that. I love the cover. I like the premise. So this one has definitely gone on the list, and if I like it, there are 2 more books already out in the series, which is awesome. The next one on this list, and pretty high up, is The Daughter of the Beast. This is the Vishivka trilogy, I hope I pronounced that somewhat correctly, by E.C. Greaves. Now, this one is giving me definite Escara Hellscene vibes, and everything about this is a yes for me. This one says, steeped in Slavic myth and appealing to adult and young adult readers alike, Daughter of the Beast is a rich and unique fantasy coming-of-age story. That is what drew me, was the description of the book itself was steeped in Slavic myth, and the cover as a combination had me saying absolutely yes, this is a story that I want to be about. Next up on my radar is To Steal the Sun, the Jeweled Lands Book 1 by S. M. Carter. The first line in this blurb had me sold. I don't need much more than this at all. It says, Carly is a scarred assassin whose life is devoted to her holy order. But when her latest mission goes awry, she's forced onto a crew set to attempt an elaborate heist. Two of my favorite things, assassins and religion, being discussed in a fantasy book and then followed by a heist, which also can be pretty cool. So the first line of the blurb definitely had my attention. Moving on from there, and maybe a carryover from the last sentence I just said, is The Hand of God by Yuval Kordov. Again, those words, dark fantasy horror, have come up in this book and I'm all about it. We've got a couple of sci-fi elements in there. It's a post-apocalyptic vibe and I'm absolutely here for it. This compelling new series explores questions of family, faith, and the human condition on the backdrop of a dark post-apocalyptic future. Again, reading all the blurbs, having a sentence like that be the descriptor for the series, I'm absolutely going to want to pick that book on up. The next one I have here is The Bloodborn Dragon. This is by J.C. Rycroft and is the Everland Cycle Book 1. This one got me from the hype train. It's enough of a hype train for me to be intrigued, but not enough of a hype train for me to push that book down on a list until that hype train dies. There is a number of Spfbo authors who put together a competition, and within that competition they sort of took snippets of each other's books, and I've heard nothing but good things about this book from some of the authors that I've read their books. I've interviewed them over this year and I trust them. I trust their judgment. So I was seeing it everywhere for a little while this competition was running, and people had really good things to say about it. So you know that's going to pique my attention, and I'm going to want to pick this one up. Then I read the blurb, and there was one part of the blurb that definitely caught my attention. It was right up the top. A bond she didn't choose, a love she can't escape, and a creature so powerful it bends the limits of time. That sounds pretty cool. I believe we do have some sapphic rep in this book as well, which is always a bonus to get some queer representation in books. Then I have The Fall Is All There Is. This is by C.M. Kaplan, The Four Mercies, book number 1. This book has some reviews from reviewers that I absolutely trust. It looks to be quite a unique tale in the dark fantasy realm, and I'm really excited to jump into something that has a unique feel to it. The first part of the blurb says, and the first part is what sold me. You never want to ruin a really good dramatic exit. When you flee home on a cyborg horse the exact second you turn 18, you don't really expect to go back to the place you fled from, you know, but sometimes your old life hits you from behind. I need to know what's happening in this book. Moving on from there, we have Throne of Deceit. This is Dragons of Isentol, book 1 by P.D. Mack and Richard Fierce. I love a good political drama personally, and with royalty, and this has promise. Their royal parents assassinated, 2 young siblings are separated and hidden to protect their future and the future of their kingdom. Only when their adoptive families are murdered do they discover the truth of their heritage. Now it is time to reclaim what is theirs, but to do that, they will need an army and magic. With many interested in their royal roots, they must decide who can be trusted and who is trying to kill them. The next one, again, is a little bit of a change of pace from what you might expect from my reading taste, but I read the blurb. I am very intrigued by cozy fantasy, so I thought I would give this one a go. And this is Mrs. Covington's by K.R.R. Lockhaven. And the cover intrigued me, but the blurb has intrigued me more. I'll just take a snippet of it to show you what I just want to know what's going on. When Jacob Bright strikes out on his own and moves to a new island, he quite unexpectedly finds himself the owner of a failing capybara-themed pub named Miss Covington's. He quickly learns that he's going to have to make new friends and innovate if it's going to succeed. But when he learns that a neighbouring fawn food restaurant run by his kind-hearted new friend might have to close its doors, his priority changes. This is cozy fantasy in a tavern. I love tavern vibes in fantasy stories. It always gets me. It's always like a buzzword. If we start in a tavern, if we have a home base, that's a tavern. It's got that comforting feeling. So this is quite promising to me. If I ever want to just dip into something that's not super dark, or complex by the sound of things. So this one looks like it's going to be pretty character heavy and yeah, cozy. The next one, which is more on theme for myself, is Candle Children by Michael Baker. This is dark fantasy horror. You're going to hear those words a few times if you haven't spotted the theme already. This first line of the blurb or the description of the book had me just clicking by now. This was a dark flintlock fantasy set in a city haunted by more than just ghosts. Also, the cover, so we're pretty much 3 for 3 on this one. Coming to the last 3 on this list, we have Obsidian Awakening by Sienna Frost. The reviews for this book are incredible. It has been the favourite book of the year for some of the booktube community and the reviewers that I really trust. People are saying this is the best self-pub book since the Sword of Kaigen, which was an incredible read, so you know that I am intrigued. I want to go in fairly blind here. I've heard such good things about this book and I cannot wait to dive in. Second last one I have is Legacy of the Vermillion Blade. This is A Time of Falcons and Roses, book 1. Now, the description of the book from the author, so the author's quote down the bottom of the blurb, is what has me intrigued about this one. It said, "I wanted to craft an epic fantasy story featuring the incredible diversity of love and relationships that span the asexual spectrum in my LGBTQIA+ inclusive world. The new continent of Rhaenyra acts as the backdrop for Talon's story, and I've filled it with a rich tapestry of living characters and unique locations that followers have come to expect from my storytelling. An accessible tale of high fantasy adventure for all those who have yearned for love and felt the heartbreak of its loss. Legacy of the Vermillion Blade is for the hopeful, broken-hearted, and the broken hopeful-hearted in us all." I thought that quote was beautiful, and as someone who doesn't really like feeling things, that quote made me feel something, so I'm quite intrigued about this book. It does seem a little bit more romance heavy than I would normally gravitate towards, but I love that we have ace representation coming out more and more in books, so I am quite interested to see what this one holds. The last one I have here is The Certainty of Blood by Tim Frankovic. Now listen to this. This is the descriptor of the book, and one, the cover has me going, what the actual F is happening in this book? But this descriptor, Gladiator meets Name of the Wind in a mesmerizing tale of blood, glory, magic, and love. I don't know what's happening here, but I will be finding out in the next 12 months. Those were the books that are on my radar for the SPFBO 9 competition. What are you interested in? Are you following this competition? Have you picked out your own TBR? Let me know what you're going to read in the comments down below. If you like the content, give it one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will. I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao.